Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Bloody Good Horror. My name's Eric, and I'll be your host for this evening, where we will be reviewing Lose, a movie that I don't know if I'm sad or happy that Joe isn't here to review. We'll get to that soon. First up, joining us tonight, returning to us finally from globetrotting. We'll hear all about that later. Please welcome Cece to the show.
Hello.
Looking just straight up like she's about to rob a convenience store tonight. I like it. Also wearing
It's
a
a
winter.
little chilly down here.
Also wearing a winter hat in the middle of Georgia. I just want to point out.
I mean, it is like 40 something outside.
Okay.
Dang.
All right, I'll give you that.
Dang.
Next up on the show.
Dang.
Next up on the show, also wearing a winter hat indoors. And he has a beard. He runs the editorial board of bloodygoodhorror.com. Please welcome Andy to the show.
It is a board. It is made up of 50 like octopi that randomly choose what we're going to post next.
Oh, I
it's
like
great.
that. Nice. Next up on the show from Indiana, I just watched him spill wine on his shirt, and if you check out the pre-show, you did too. Please welcome Casey to the show.
Hi.
This is just one of the many things you get as a patron that you should be excited about. And last up tonight, last but certainly not least, my muse, my partner in crime from New York City. Please welcome John Schnars.
Hey there, guy.
How's it going, John?
Ooh, smoky.
It's going good, Eric. It's going.
It's been a whole
good.
it's been a whole 7 days since I saw your face. Maybe 6. I don't know when we recorded last week.
Okay, who can tell?
Yeah.
Eric, this movie inspired me to ask you this. Would you dare call John your Liebchen?
Since I followed nothing from this movie, I don't know what that's in reference to or what it means. So there we go. Sure. Yes.
It's like your little sweetheart, your little bud.
Liebchen.
Yes. Yeah, we're here tonight to talk about Lose. Andy, did you know a little bit about this? Like, somebody posted on Slack that it was a thesis.
Yeah. So the director of this gentleman by the name, I believe, named Tillman Singer, he is actually, I believe there was a thesis project that he completed as part of like a film school program. I tried to look up a little bit more about him. I couldn't find too much, mostly because it's basically this one 70-minute feature and then 2 shorts. So he is very, very like new at this whole thing. But yeah, I originally saw this kicking around in 2018. It like screened at the Fantasia Film Fest, and I don't know, there's just something about the design of the poster and the imagery and the title that like really stuck with me. So I was excited to like jump on this.
I suggested this for the show after lately I've been having a lot of like choice paralysis lately, where you just have so many streaming services. Like I miss cable. I miss just watching a movie because it was on. It's halfway through. I don't know what's happening.
I just want someone to tell me what to watch.
Yeah, I do, 100%. So I've been flipping through Shudder TV a lot, and like in a haze the other night, caught part of this movie and was like, this shit is weird. And so, and then I just started putting it together that I had been hearing other people recommending it, so I shot it out as an option.
Did you put it together that it was on our potential to be watch list for the last like 3 months?
Yes, that list.
That put it together for you? Or?
Yes, that list that I look at all the time. I do have to say, on this, he is a dude. Tillman Singer he wrote a short movie with the wonderful title of "The Events at Mr. Yamamoto's Alpine Residence."
I would watch that.
I'm stealing for a band name.
I'm in on that hard.
All right, guys. No Joe tonight. This is normally where we do our beer pick, but he is sadly not here. So let's do it. Let's take a quick break and review Lose.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. From the prime time. Main feature.
And we're back. John Schnars.
Yes, Eric.
You claim to have spent 45 minutes looking for a word for tonight's show. Is that real? Now that I'm calling you out?
Yes.
Are you exaggerating?
No. It began right around 7:20. Kids were in bed. I started eating my dinner. Wife puts on Blind Date on the television. So I'm like, this is a good time. I'm going to start researching words.
What is Blind Date?
You don't know Blind Date? It's like a show from like 15 years ago, and they revived it. It's on. There's like a a new version on Bravo.
And listen,
It's a good time.
if we're reviving shows from 15 years ago and it's not cheaters, then I don't want to talk.
Cheaters. I wish
Cheaters.
they'd bring back Cheaters.
Didn't someone get killed in Cheaters?
No,
Like, that
so
was-
they-
No,
there was-
Joey Greco got stabbed
There
on
was
a boat.
yeah. So there
I
was
saw that episode.
there was a
And then
host.
Clark
that's
Gable's
all.
grandson is now hosting,
Yeah, there
or
was a host
hosting.
host change at some point because that dude got stabbed.
Is he okay? Like, do we know?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was
Oh, alright.
superficial.
I mean, he does. Yeah, it's just
Stabs on him.
a flesh wound. He's not really the
We
kind of.
watched- We were talking about it at work, and we have a TV at work, and I legit pulled it up and made made my coworkers watch the whole episode one day. So I'm a pretty hardcore fan of
It was in
Cheaters.
like it was night vision, I believe, when he gets stabbed. Yeah, I definitely saw that episode.
Cheaters to me was always weird though. Weird because like it occupied that weird territory for me of like when I was a kid and watching professional wrestling, and I'm like, I mean, ostensibly I know this is fake, but it looks real. Like, and then like you're watching Cheaters and you're like, there's no way this is real, but the guy did get stabbed. That's like a proven police fact. So
So you're saying it's real to me, man?
yes, it's still real to me. Exactly. All
It
right.
definitely was. It was early reality, right? Like it was.
Yes.
It just didn't play by all the rules that
Yeah.
you expect reality to. So
As well as really low budget reality.
Yeah.
So
All right, John. That amazing segue is all to say. Please bring us the word of the day.
Eric, this week we're watching Lose, and today's word is lose. That's Luz. Luz is a Spanish word meaning light. That's actually not the definition we're interested in here. Cece called attention to the fact that lose in Hebrew, or in the Jewish traditions, I should say, has a pretty interesting meaning. So it comes from the Hebrew word luz means nut or almond. And because of this, the word became associated with the small bone at the top of the spinal column, essentially the first vertebrae, which sits right underneath the brain. And according to Wikipedia, so if you're, Jewish or Hebrew scholars out there, let us know if this is accurate. Jewish traditions teach that this is the bone from which the body will be rebuilt at the time of resurrection, and they share the idea that this bone does not decay.
Oh,
So,
fascinating.
yeah,
So
pretty
like
fun times.
you couldn't make like a broth out of it.
I don't know. Maybe if there was like some organic matter
Around
attached to the bone.
Yeah, yeah.
Some,
but
like,
it'd make a
human
great
tails.
paperweight.
There
That's
you go.
true. Yeah, a paperweight that never decays. That's perfect. Love it. John, tell me about Lose.
Yeah, lose. So as Andy mentioned earlier, this is the first film. In fact, well, we suspect some type of student production, a thesis film. It is described as on the internet of director Tillman Singer. It is a German film, but it features a dizzying vacillation between German, Spanish, and then there's even some English. There's a lot of sequences in this film. I mean, we're going to talk about a lot of this, but there's sequences in this film where you can hear words being spoken, but they're not translating them. They're not subtitling them, which I thought was actually a really interesting decision. So it's a German film though originally. That's sort of where Tillman Singer hails from, I should say. The plot is somewhat let's take it from what we find out or what we see. So you have Luz. Luz is a taxi driver. We see her stumble into a police station. It's sort of not clear why she's arriving at the police station. There's a very long take of her arriving at the police station and accosting the desk attendant with some weird biblical language, or biblically inflected language, I should say.
I mean,
and
really,
then,
really, she's devoid of any context. She's really just kind of badgering this poor day worker here.
Or I say
Yeah.
it's
She's
the
like, "Is
most
this really what you
cheaters-like
want?"
scene of the show.
She's like, "Is this really what you want out of your life?" And he's like, "Yeah, sit down and shut up."
yeah. We then immediately we're introduced to a second character in a completely separate setting. This is Nora Vanderkoot. How do you like that, Andy? That was good.
Is she a
Good
cousin, John?
pronunciation? Yeah. No, no relation. But fair
agree to
question.
disagree.
I'm gonna need you to say that at least a couple more times so I can get it as my text alert.
Vanderkoot.
Nora Vanderkoot. There's Jesus. We see her at a bar where she is trying to woo or otherwise catch the attention of Dr. Rossini.
Aggressively seducing.
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
one
I don't
step
know
away
if
from
seduction
doing
is
that.
really-
One step away from doing that 80s cherry stem thing with her tongue.
I mean, she basically is like roofing him, I think is
Yeah.
like the more appropriate reference. But so we see her. And so we now are sort of, there's these two sequences somewhat being intercut. The thrust of the action, I would say in the beginning part of the film is Nora and this Dr. Rossini. Dr. Rossini is a hypnotist I think he describes himself as a psychotherapist or like a psychoanalyst or something. But we see him later perform hypnotism, so that's what I'll go with hypnotist.
He's got the he can say what he wants, but he's got the face of a sex offender.
I mean, like, you could describe him as the German Chris Angel, I think, is more like what he is.
Wow.
I was there for Dr. Rossini.
There's an actor.
I was in it for him.
There's an actor, and I don't even know what era this actor's from that he deeply looks like, and I just like it's like in the tip of my brain, and I cannot put it together.
Yeah. All right. Well, all right. We can come back to it because I agree. There was someone that he also reminds me of, and I can't think of it. Oh no, I know who it is. We'll come back to it. But in any event, so Nora essentially she's stringing him along or trying to kind of pull him along, seduce him, if you will. They're just getting very drunk. She then pulls him into the bathroom after a sort of a long extended courtship, and there she. I'm trying to think of exactly what happened, but essentially she kisses him and there is a light coming out of her mouth. And at that point she collapses and she is essentially transferred to him, whatever the hell was going on inside her. We had also seen that he was feeling really sick and was like super drunk. And after that happens, he immediately sort of sobers up and leaves. He then arrives at the police station and we see that he's there actually to assist in the interrogation of Luz. And this is where the sort of background to everything that we've just seen is kind of revealed. The rest of the setup is essentially that the film kind of the arc that the rest of the film takes is that they are performing this interrogation. Rossini, this German police captain or something called Bertillon, and then Olart, who is a translator. And essentially the three of them have this pretty contrived hypnosis setup that they're putting Luz through to try to get her to relive and essentially explain to them what happened. And they're basically asking her what happened to Nora, if I'm sort of describing it accurately.
Yes, these are all things that I got from this movie. Okay,
Okay.
let's talk about it. Andy, what'd you think? You're ready? Okay.
Excuse me. So I think last show Casey managed to describe Color Out of Space as like a movie that was essentially like made for you. And I think that this is probably an example of a movie that was basically like made for my interest. It's like overly arty. It's a little bit obtuse, but it's like kind of gorgeously filmed and has a very unique style and tone. That being said, I don't think I hated an opening sequence for a movie I ultimately liked more than I hated the opening sequence for this film. So I'm kind of like really riding the roller coaster of emotions with this thing. I mean, like I watched it at like 11 p.m. last night and it's like 70 minutes long, but I ended up feeling so engaged by it that after I was finished watching it, I actually went back and watched sequences of it again.
I'll say this for
So-
it. I'll say this for that opening sequence. This movie lets you know exactly what it is immediately out of the box.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely get that. And just to, I'll finish up my thoughts, but like one of the things that like I want to like kind of call attention to is the fact when the film opens, there are all these kind of like grainy degradations in the image. You know, like there is definitely like, basically like scratches in the film stock. And for a second there, I'm like, Jesus Christ, is this going to be like some fetish object of like, look how old this is and how cool we can make it look? And then I actually like read up a little bit more, and it is filmed on 16 millimeters. So I'm like, okay, this person's like doing their homework, and they are calling attention to the certain stylistic tendencies of filmmakers they like.
They're leaning into it. You know, they're leaning into the grain. It's developed in a way where the colors are all kind of desaturated, like
Right. It's like it's very kind of like
early
sepia
80s.
and like a little bleached, except for when they want certain things to pop. So just to like, I guess like wrap up my thoughts, like I'm pretty like conflicted on it, but ultimately I think I might really enjoy this film.
I'm kind of disappointed to hear they shot it on 16 millimeter, only because in my head, thought whoever did this is a friggin' magician, and I want to talk to them. And now I know it's just that they just shot it on film.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know, isn't that there's
I
something
like
to be
it. No,
said,
I
right? Like,
res-
There's
I-
still
yeah.
a cinematographer
No,
involved. I mean, like there's still direction involved.
I respect the game for sure. CC, welcome back. What do you think of this?
Yes. So I definitely can say I went into this movie very blind. I didn't really know what to expect and hadn't read or heard anything about it. And I don't feel like I can echo all of Andy's sentiments. It's a little, I will admit that it's a little far out of my wheelhouse in terms of artistry. Like I can appreciate it, but I didn't really know what I was watching. That being said, I do think that the tone and the underlying, feeling of unease and this like weird, like, I don't know, that weird, basically dread that you're feeling definitely resonated. So I appreciated that. And I like this story. I mean, I'm always about a good possession story. So I was into it, but it definitely was a little hard to get into at first.
Casey.
Especially coming back from being off for so long.
Yeah. Welcome
Why
back.
are these pictures moving?
What is this?
Casey.
So my reaction at the end of this movie was, what the hell? But after I slept on it some, I think I kind of like this. It took a while for me to wrap my head around. It's that kind of a movie. They're not laying it out for you, which I appreciate. I really appreciate the bizarreness of it. I really appreciate the looks. There was a scene with Dr. Rossini where he was standing. There was a fan blowing somewhere in the back of the room. His eyes were kind of glazed over and white. Really remind me of like a Fulci flick or something. And they're just that scene in particular. I really liked a lot of the stuff that they were putting together in this. And at the end, once you finally wrap your head around what's going on, I really kind of liked the way it unfolded. At the same time, we talked about it over an email. I think John, you and Eric both mentioned it. I would have liked to see this go a little more over the top. It's a demon possession. It's really got a feel for some of the older 80s horror flicks, some of the bargain bin stuff you'd find, or some Italian flicks and whatnot. Something for a little bit of blood and gore and stuff like that. It's a demon flick. Didn't necessarily get that. And the ending was just kind of weird in the way it ended, but I understood what he's going for. So overall, I appreciated this movie. I don't know that I'd go back and watch it again.
Yeah, I think, your mention of Fulci, I think, is like spot on. And there's like a ton of sequences where it looks a lot like an Argento movie too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Fulci, I mean, Fulci was an exploitation filmmaker. Like, Fulci would get there, though, eventually. You know what I mean? In a way that this movie doesn't necessarily.
There's some
John.
stuff. Like, this movie does have some...
No, I know, but it's... Whatever. Just, you go, John.
Yeah. I love this movie. So I would say I knew almost nothing about it. It had been either recommended to us or someone had sort of flagged it in the Slack, group, and we had it on the list, but I hadn't watched the trailer. I had read the sort of like tagline about some like a demon possessed cab driver, yada yada. I had no idea how. Eric, I think you described it as art housey. It's 100%. I mean, it is an art film. It's non-linear. It's borderline non-narrative. And I don't know. I felt very, it'll sound silly, but I felt like enlivened by it. Like I felt like just watching it, I just felt very charged by the film in a lot of ways. A lot of it I think has to do with the visuals. I think the sound design is incredible. And we can talk there's some real sort of like showmanship that this Tillman singer deploys, especially when we get to this sort of kind of key hypnosis sequence, that I was super impressed by it. Like, I didn't know it was his first film. Because I had to split it up watching it. I know it's short, but I still had to chop the last like 30 minutes.
Dude,
And
I made the mistake of trying to sit down to comfortably watch this the first night, and 40 minutes in was like, I can't keep my eyes open. I can't. And then, so the second night, I finished it sitting at the kitchen table, like in the most uncomfortable chair in the house.
yeah, I mean, so I kind of went the other way on it, where like I kind of sat down and was like, yeah, I'll just, whatever, I'll check this out. And I just got really sucked in. To me, I mean, obviously the sort of like Euro 70s Euro directors that are cited really heavily in this film. I think the other person that this brought up for me was Cronenberg, who I'm obsessed with, is like one of my favorite directors. But specifically, there's actually 2 student films that have subsequently been released. I think you can find them on probably like Criterion or something. Stereo and Crimes of the Future. I had a chance to see those in the theater like way back in college, and very similar sort of experience as watching this. I think the influences are actually pretty similar, although he was making those movies in the 70s, so it was maybe more contemporary. So yeah, I don't know. I came away from this like super impressed. And I do think it loses a little bit of steam at the end. I mean, it's funny to say that like a 70-minute movie couldn't necessarily sort of like land it with as strong as a finish as I think he might have wanted, but some of the imagery is really strong, and I don't know. Yeah, I just overall really enjoyed it.
It's interesting. I can't say that I loved this movie, but in a weird way, I'm relieved that you guys liked it, because sitting down, watching this movie, I thought I was going to have a riot on my hands. Like, and maybe if you swap Andy out for Joe, maybe the tides turn a little bit. I don't know. But like, I literally was like, everybody's going to hate this movie. They're going to hate me for suggesting it. I'm never going to get a suggested movie. Like, I was down the rabbit hole. But so I'm glad you guys liked it. For me, I have a great appreciation for the artistry here. That 16 millimeter look, now that I know especially that it's authentic, like, it is, to me, adds a lot of character and depth to the film that is already shot and lit in a really interesting way. I love the muted colors. The sound design is really great. The sound even has all the subtle aging effects happening to it that I really liked. But it's not actually set back then, I don't think, because I'm pretty sure there's like modern technology at points.
The beeper.
Yeah, so it's so maybe that's not modern, but there is an interesting kind of like, I don't know, anachronistic thing going on. I thought there was a
well, that one guy has a podcast studio inside the police station.
I know, I'm jealous of that guy's sound booth.
Oh,
So yeah, and I think, John, you said the word charged. You felt charged, and I think that's actually a great adjective to describe the direction, because what she's doing is, it's like pulling out single moments and then stretching it out and letting it linger. And the opening scene's a great example, where it's literally, there are moments, several moments in this movie, where there is no movement happening in the frame, to the point where you think maybe Shutter crashed, except the sound is still going, so you figure it didn't. But like, it creates a really weird kind of like I don't know, like disorienting effect, especially when taken into effect with the grain, because what grain does is kind of cycle over a picture. So you've got a picture that isn't actually moving, but the grain is moving, and it's actually like, sometimes it's almost hypnotic at times. In fact, this thing is so grainy that and also dark, that Shutter's compression algorithms have absolutely no idea what to do with this movie, because anytime there's a dark scene, it just looks like 8-bit, like bleeps and bloops, because it's just like, Andy's a projectionist, he knows what I'm talking about. But so yeah, so like, I love the aesthetic. I do think this movie has some great, when it deigns to give you some action, I think it has some great crescendos. In particular, to me, that whole bar scene was really intense to me, because it's kind of a bummer, because I actually think that actress is the best actress / actor in the whole movie. At least she's the most interesting. Like, she's out there. Like, she's like Nick Cage territory in this bar scene.
She's very physical.
Yeah, and like, she's actually. Yeah. And I swear they told her to act like she might be an android, because she's literally like snapping her neck in a really weird way, and like moving awkwardly.
Yeah, I mean, at that point in the film, she's possessed by a demon.
Right, and so
yeah,
I was bummed, because after this scene, she's gone for the most part. Like she comes back, but it's in a different way. So I missed her presence a lot. But like the way that scene crescendos into the ending in the bathroom, like that is so intense. I think the middle stretch is where I just kind of like I had to turn it off and come back to it the next night because I'm like, what the like. To me, when you're talking about an art house movie, and this is very art housey, and like you have to, if you're thinking about watching this, you have to kind of ask yourself where you fall on the spectrum, right? Because like if a normal movie is a thing with a very clear linear plot that takes you from point A to B and is easy to understand, and a full art house movie is a movie that has its head just directly up its own ass, sniffing its own farts, and then there's a slider, right? And for me, like I need the slider over towards plot at least a little bit. And I think like somebody like Ari Aster is actually doing really fascinating things by blending those two things in a way, like getting it just the other side of mainstream where he can get something like The Witch or Midsummer to actually hit with, especially Midsummer, obviously, to actually hit with audiences while still keeping that art house spirit there. That's the kind of thing I can really get into. This, to me, at the end of the day, I find a little too fart smelly, honestly. Like, Andy said the word obtuse. Like, you guys are talking about the plot in this movie, but it is very difficult to follow what's happening in this movie, partly because all the conversations are disembodied. We're getting a lot of plot information filtered through not the actual character they're talking about, and so you have to really know the names, and like that's what really threw me off about this whole hypnosis
There's only
scene.
6 people in the film, Eric.
No, but
So
like,
it's not-
but the characters are like channeling other characters
Yeah,
without
yeah,
you
yeah,
always
sure.
knowing exactly who they're channeling, and so like literally I didn't understand really what was happening until I read IMDb afterwards, and even now
Well-
when I think back, I'm like, okay, dude, like the director told you this.
It's also confusing because so Nora, the bar woman, the android demon lady, she is telling a story about something that happened in the past that becomes like really pivotal, and
Yeah.
you don't. At least I didn't realize, and I think she's intentionally being, obtuse, or she's obscuring the fact that she is the person
Right.
on the floor
Right.
in that sequence, and so. That
she,
that
though?
becomes
So-
like
okay.
another.
Yeah, I wasn't clear on
Is
that.
she?
If that was
Because
supposed
if
to be
so,
her.
then again, like when I say like intentionally confusing, it's a totally different actress.
Well,
I
yeah,
thought
honestly,
that,
like,
that
I think it is a different person. Like I think
it
that
is a different person
yeah.
because the nuns say that person died because she starts having a whole
Right.
freak out while she's hypnotized, saying,
Yeah, she
"Are
died,
you,
John.
do you feel bad for her death?" Yeah, so
John-
it's not the
And
same
I'm,
person.
and
John-
I'm pretty sure at one point Nora said she never spoke to her in school, but she
Right.
finally got to talk to her in the cab.
Yeah, John, do you want to tell me more about how you understand what happened in this movie?
Well, no, I did. So yeah, look, like maybe I misinterpreted it. I don't know. I thought she was saying that it was actually her.
No,
that was
because
like part of the reveal.
The whole movie to me is about her running away from the guilt, and this is she's kind of being
Yeah.
forced to confront what she did, while also confronting this cab scene that I don't fully understand, but does
But
lead.
that's the cab
does-
scene is just like essentially a recreation of what happened when she was younger. The fact that she injured
Yeah,
a friend.
Listen, this is me making a wanking motion, John. I don't know. Like
Well,
at the end of
yeah,
the day,
enough.
just like my final thought is, I do not think this is a bad movie, but I think like when confronted with this movie, you need to make a choice as to what kind of a movie viewer you are. Like,
Oh.
I should
Yeah.
mention that our boy Darren there on the Slack watched it the other night and basically got on and threatened to never listen to the show again if we liked it. Which I would like to say, Darren, you're a part of this now. You can't go anywhere. But I 100% understand his sentiment. Like his first comment was, "I'm 10 minutes into this movie and I can think of 10 minutes they should have got."
I mean, like, I think there's a couple of ways that you can approach talking about a movie like this, right? I mean, like, one, like, first of all, if we like put it into the context in which it's being made, it's somebody making a film for themselves, obviously, because it is very, I don't want to say unique, but it's very like of a personal style, and it's very much,
idiosyncratic.
yes, thank you. Yeah, that's
Okay.
a good way of the man of words. But then it's also kind of like thinking about what he's trying to say with this thing. I mean, we can go into the whole like, does Argento or Fulci or any of his other inspirations have any other like goals other than representing like nightmare logic and the kind of sensory experience of visiting the supernatural, or like does this film in particular have anything up its sleeves besides figuring out how to recreate a cab sequence where they didn't have to pay for a cab and like be outside? Because like that whole sequence,
there was a cab.
Yeah.
They did end up.
That's
This
true.
is
That's
very
true.
much how I play with my daughters on a rainy day. Like, let's sit on the couch and pretend we're driving.
Well, like that's the thing is that like I feel like that cab sequence during the hypnotization, whatever, you know what I mean.
Hypnosis.
Thank you. There it is. I think that cab sequence in the hypnosis scene is really pivotal in like whether or not you're gonna like the film, which is why I think Eric, I was really intrigued by the fact that like that's what like kind of took you out of it, but you really enjoyed the beginning, because I thought it was going to be the opposite for you, since the beginning is like so like alienating and like distancing, whereas like the cab sequence, like the editing picks up and they're trying to get you to suture in with Luz's experience.
To me, that
yeah.
section is where the movie just got intensely confusing for me. Again, because like so Luz is the character with the backwards hat, right? Let's just start there.
Yeah.
Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay, so she is like flashing
Who's an
back,
immigrant from Chile
but
to Germany.
but when she's pretending to be the cab driver, isn't she actually channeling the other actress? Isn't she pretending to be the other actress?
Sometimes.
No.
Because isn't the other
Well-
actress actually the cab driver?
No.
No.
She's the cab.
Well,
Luz
Luz
is the
is the
cab
cab
driver.
Then we're
driver.
getting to
There's
the reason.
times she's speaking words that Nora spoke in the cab.
Yeah, and this is why this thing lost me. It's just like, can we be just like slightly clearer,
well,
please?
But this was one of the other things I thought was funny. I think if you were to count individual words in the script, I think there is less script here than maybe any movie we've ever watched, because there's
Yes.
essentially the one snippet of dialogue. It's the same thing that she says to the police officer when she first rolls into the police station. She then sort of repeats that in several different sequences or as part of
The same
several
prayer.
different. Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's I think
profane
it's the
prayer.
it's the prayer to Saint Edgelord is what I think that is.
Yes. Yeah.
Which I think is like, all right, real quick about that prayer. I was really annoyed by it for the first half, and then I realized like, oh, this was written by teenagers. Like it's supposed to be bad.
Well,
So I
yeah.
kind of was okay with it.
Is it?
Yeah, literally when they were in high school. Look, the other point I was going to make, just to respond to Andy really quickly, because I actually think it does matter that this was a student film. Like, it's not that he
Sure,
was making
sure.
this movie for himself. Like, it's essentially like, if you're making a student film, it's like you're testing things, you're
No, look,
practicing.
and
things.
as
Yeah.
a, and as
You're
a
not trying to make the most commercial film
of course,
possible.
yeah,
you
of
know?
course, and as a portfolio showing like the skills you learned, I think it's like very impressive. However, I do think it takes on a different context when Shudder just presents it as a movie and puts it on its service.
Well,
That's
and-
fair.
Yeah, but that's also where I think the whole like universe of streaming is a little disorienting and like discombobulating, right? Like you remove it from the context. Like if you had seen this in
'Cause
2018,
it's not like the Shudder.
Fantasia Fest.
I checked. It's not like the Shudder description is like, check out this guy's student film. It's like, no, it's just the description of the movie.
No, and I'm saying like that's part of the like you are right that many people will have a sort of like similar experience to what you're describing if they just like pop open Shudder and they're like, what's this like cool looking thing, because it's not meant to be necessarily consumed in that same way. Like literally I went into this knowing nothing except that someone had mentioned it was a thesis film, and that immediately at least like gave me the sense like,
Sure.
okay, like I probably should like reset my expectations about what this is going to be like. I think also the fact that there's actually a lot, we were talking a little bit before the show, there's a lot going on here with like immigrants that are sort of like people displaced in German society. And like the one thing, Andy, I can't remember if you said it on the show or this was an email, but like this movie can't necessarily decide what it wants to say in certain places. And I think one of those places is like Luz as a character. I wanted like a little bit more, like I actually think it does a good job of kind of giving her an arc, or at least exploring her background and tying that to the present. Like there's like characterization there, but I wanted a little. I think I would have gotten more. I do wonder if you are a German person watching this, like a native language speaker, and you just have like some additional context, maybe you get a little bit more out of this. But that there's a lot that's like lost in translation, especially because again, it's a student film. It's 70 minutes long.
But like to that point,
80.
because like the cops didn't haul her in or anything, right? She just kind of wandered into the police station at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, we don't. Yeah, what
We don't even know why she went in there.
Well, because of the accident, right? There was an accident,
here's my question.
and
So
that's what that sets all this stuff off.
okay, bar lady is possessed by a demon.
The demon that Luz called
Okay.
when
In high
she
school.
put that naked girl on the floor.
But weren't you guys just telling me that they didn't even know each other?
No.
What I'm saying is that demon just possessed her because she was in the presence of Luz.
Yeah.
No.
So-
So I actually think that she. So you're saying that the Nora did not know each other from the
That's
past.
what somebody
why
said.
No, I think
I mean, they
did.
were in high school together, but they weren't
Yeah.
like friends.
They didn't talk.
Yeah.
I still maintain that Nora could have been the girl on the floor, but I
No.
guess.
No, but no,
Yeah.
they
Because
definitely.
the girl on the floor died.
They
And
definitely
Well,
that's
said.
why
They
that's why
definitely.
she has guilt about
And
it.
she
definitely
does
said
become a
that.
character at the end.
Between
Yeah.
By the way,
between
I should.
us four white boys and the Witch Queen, I'm going to listen to the Witch Queen.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
By
That's
the way, I should point out that this is basically the art house version of Jason Goes to Hell.
Yeah, you need to explain this quackery.
That's
you're
the whole
peddling,
plot.
sir.
That's the whole plot of Jason Goes to Hell. Is that Jason is this like, he's controlled by this demon lizard thing inside of him that he then like open mouth kisses people and transfers to another person.
Oh, he's not wrong.
Exactly like this movie.
Wow.
I don't think
need to
Jason
rewatch
Goes to Hell
this movie.
invented that. I know what you're.
No, they
referring to.
totally stole it from a movie I called The Hidden, I think. Like, and they've actually been
Yeah.
pretty open about doing that.
Well, and there's a movie called The Fallen with Denzel Washington where the demon keeps like jumping between people. Not
Maybe that's
because of
it.
open
Maybe
mouth
that's the
kissing,
Yeah.
though.
So
Go ahead, Casey.
I was going to say, I may not get the clear answer that I was hoping for after the recent conversation, but do you think Nora... So Nora shows up there, and the way they tell the story, she was surprised to run into Luz. So I don't know that I believe that Nora was possessed, and that's what got her to Germany. She's talking about meeting her husband and stuff like that. But there was also a point where Luz was recreating hanging out in the airport waiting for a fare, and I'm pretty sure I heard a voice coming out of her back seat, and she was like, "What was that?" and kind of freaking out. So has the demon just been hanging out, following Luz around till he had a chance?
Can I also
Yeah,
just say,
so like
Sorry,
it's
go.
based. I was just gonna say, the way I interpreted it is that yes, this demon was waiting around and like looking for her, and then eventually, once it found a vessel it could possess, that's what happened. Because later on, when I think the demon possesses the doctor, it's or like right before he possesses the doctor, he says something like, I was too like reckless in the taxi, and this time I'll be better about it. So the whole situation between the doctor and Luz in the police station, that's why it takes so long, because essentially once Nora got in the car, she was possessed, and then she died, and it
mean,
like freaked Luz out.
to some extent, though, right? Like, it's kind of a moot point because I don't think it matters. I don't.
It
I
doesn't.
don't think the director thought about it very much. I think we're thinking about it more now than the director did.
No, I think that does not give him enough credit. I think
Okay, well,
it's
Agree to disagree.
no, I mean I think it's like as Andy described, an obtuse film in a lot of ways, and so it's not that he didn't think about it, it's that it probably wasn't conveyed
Well,
again as like cleanly.
let's talk about like moments though, because we could debate this insane nonsensical plot all night and not get anywhere.
Well,
like,
can we start with the German man who, at least who I think it is, and did you look at the picture I sent?
whom I did not want to see nude and have now seen nude several
Ah.
times.
Yeah,
from the
Nora
How
moment
about
we met
nude
him-
and then to give himself a lobotomy?
The
Yeah.
worst part is
Yeah.
that so during the hypnotherapy session, he is like role playing the part in moments of the girl who dies in the flashback. And
Nora.
so we see her, and this is where the second half of the therapy session I enjoyed more, where we're actually starting to see more atmospheric seep into this room and like more setting of the other places, which was kind of cool. And
For
like,
some reason, the police station becomes like a Rush concert.
Yeah,
like,
that was
all
weird.
Well,
the
but
fog,
it-
the fog machine.
but I like that because I liked that slow seeping in of the other
Mhm.
places. But it's almost
It's
like
the further.
it's very dreamlike, but it leads to this like infuriating scene where so the actress who plays the girl who died from the ritual, who basically I think Luz said she convinced her she was pregnant or something, and that if she did this ritual it would get rid of the baby or something, and then she ended up dying. But so when she shows up in the therapy session, she is not clothed, and which like okay, and then she walks into the fog, and because this is actually this therapy doctor guy pretending to be her. You're waiting for her to walk back out of the fog, but nope, it's him and his wiener walking towards Luz, and it's just like, it's just that's where I think things get really confusing, where the people are pretending to be other people, and we're jumping back and forth between like voices and who you're looking at, and it's just like I couldn't follow any of this. But,
yeah, I
but-
mean, like that
but
sequence in particular.
visually,
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Eric.
visually, I do think that's where it gets very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like, and I feel like that sequence in particular is like one of the instances that like kind of pinged my brain a little bit, that this movie might be trying to offer some kind of like queer context for how Luz's relationship with the demon was going to manifest itself, and I couldn't necessarily figure out if, like, I mean, like, I don't know, somebody more intelligent than myself needs to do an
Well, I
actual.
thought-
Well,
queer
bad
reading of
news,
the
Andy.
film.
None of those
Yeah,
people
I
are
mean,
here.
because I
So.
thought that like because she says at the beginning of the movie when Nora or not the beginning of the movie, but at the beginning of the hypnosis, that Nora asks her if she has a boyfriend, and she's like, "No, I don't need a man." And then I took it as the demon needed to use a female vessel to get closer to get what it wanted.
Oh,
So
sure.
like there was like essentially like switching back and forth for its own motivation.
Mhm. And the film like very much codes Luz as like somebody who's like more masculine and like
Right.
yeah.
With her backwards cap.
Well, like even how she like carries herself when she is like under hypnosis and she's ostensibly performing herself. That whole I keep going back to that sequence because it's like it's so close to being like bad like improv acting, you know, where it's just like
Yeah.
here's your chairs, pretend you're in a car.
Yeah.
It's like so close to being that, but like there's just so many different layers of like artistry and like performativity coming from the actress performing Luz that like I found it pretty
Well,
compelling.
Well, and
It
the
starts-
sound design
yeah,
in
it-
that,
And the sound
that's what
design.
made it for me.
The
Like
thing
that's
is
what
that
I agree with you, but that's what carried it over.
well,
the-
because
the-
it starts
the whole-
out without the sound design part, and then slowly the sound seeps in, almost kind of
Mhm.
unnoticeably, to where it's almost like deafening. But that's the point at which I think her acting starts feeling more natural, because it's kind of painting this whole scene a little clearer.
Yeah, when she first starts saying the airport announcements in like that male English voice, I was like,
and
okay.
muted.
Mhm.
She was muted, like muffled.
Yeah, I mean all that stuff. I mean, it's funny because she's moving her lips. Like it's not. I don't think she's actually saying it. It's just
Yeah.
being foleyed in. But
I really
don't know.
liked the other woman that's working with Penis Doctor.
yeah, Bertillon.
Tony.
Yeah,
Or
she
yeah,
she had like
Bertillon.
a presence that I liked. It's unclear to me why that character is there though, and like going along with this, like as long as she is.
That's German Mariska Hargitay.
Yeah,
Hargitay.
I could see that. And she just whips out a
So-
gun at one point.
Yes.
I mean, if there's one character in this movie that could kick all of our asses, I think it's her.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm
It's
into it.
definitely not the sound booth guy
I'm
who
into it.
locks himself in there
Yeah.
the whole time.
He like puts up a fight though, but in the end just kind of screws the pooch.
Yeah.
And
No.
I love that he won't translate what Luz is saying because it's blasphemous.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of awesome.
Some good comedy there.
And she's like,
The,
seriously?
I think Cece mentioned the sequence where he changes into the Nora's clothing and then stabs himself in the nose. The sound of the nose
Oh.
stabbing, I honest to God like gasped. It was
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
gross.
I had on
Uh,
headphones and I had to like take my headphones out. I was like, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't right now.
Yeah. And it went
It
on.
was-
It was like a 15-second shot of him. doing
Yeah.
It was
There's
just,
a go ahead, Casey.
I was gonna say the scene after that really struck me, not necessarily because he was strolling around the room butt ass naked, but that was like where the Fulciism kind of kicked in, and we saw this thing where he kind of changed. That's when he grabbed Bertoni or whatever her name was by the throat and said, "I got use for you later." The fog starts coming in, and he's got the white eyes, and you could tell he's possessed. And then you can't even tell what he's doing. He's kind of stumbling around in the fog, and then he's walking back through those chairs with kind of like a Jesus Christ pose. It was pretty. I just thought it was shot really well, and that's what really struck Fulci for me.
It is, and that's the thing. The whole thing is shot really well. And all the, like, there are a lot of infuriating decisions made, but I always appreciate when a movie is very, I don't know, intentional, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing here being done out of laziness or indecision. It's like, this dude knew exactly the kind of movie he wanted to make, and he made it. And I think, especially if he's young, that shows a lot of confidence that I think probably bodes well for him as a filmmaker. I'd be, of course, interested to see him do something a little more followable, but it's a very interesting thing to make as your like first full length movie.
You know, and at the same time, like I talked about at the beginning, where I wished it kind of would have gone more over the top, there would have been some gore and stuff like that. At the same time, especially after talking about it, you can see where it's kind of refreshing that somebody did a demon possession movie and it didn't have that stuff in it, especially since they were paying so much homage to a lot of the Italian flicks and stuff like that, which are known for their gore and their off-colored blood and stuff like that. They didn't go that route, which was an interesting choice. So I got to give them kudos for that too, because it's like, Eric, and you can't stand haunted house movies anymore where the ghosts are fucking with the pictures on the walls and stuff like that. If they would have gone the gory route, it would have been something like that, following the demon formula.
I mean,
You know what I mean?
it's not
Those
even.
picture fucking ghosts.
I mean, it's not even that. Like, if you haven't seen this, it can't be overstated how, like, disembodied this movie is. It's like watching a movie filtered through a kaleidoscope, or you know what I mean? Like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like the whole movie's on acid in the way that none of the conversations really make sense, and you're left to sort of like, or they're so sparse, and then you get a 10-minute shot of silence staring at someone's face. You know, it's like that. It's art house. Like,
I don't know. I
Not
think
that
that
bad.
like the
Yeah, I was
more
gonna say.
the opening is
the
like a
further-
10-minute shot of that girl's face.
the further away I get from it, I think the more I like it, because if you're a fan of possession movies or any like religiously toned horror movies, like it really, I don't know, the like that unintelligible, like the thing that you can't like comprehend, like it really embodies that in a way that you don't see. And I mean, like Casey's saying, like, you know, we have so many possession movies of, okay, you know, they're floating off the bed and like throwing crucifixes at you and shit, and it's just like, this is so subtle yet so very directed in its direction, like in the direction of the plot, that you're like, if I don't know, it just seems more realistic. So like, you know, you would just look over and this person is like talking to themselves or like fighting with themselves. You're like, okay, you know, there's something weird here. So I think the further away you can get from it without, you know, sniffing too much of the art house gas.
It's funny
it's
because I'm
pretty-
having the opposite reaction where you guys are making me like it less now. But like, this movie is like all story and no plot, and I just need a little more plot. Like, plot is in things happening in a movie. Like, nothing happens in this movie, but there is a ton of story that is like.
What do you mean? She gets possessed. That's
No,
what
but like, I'm
happens.
saying action. I'm saying things happening and characters doing things. Like, you're in two.
I mean, shit doesn't always happen in life constantly.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
is your
I could
life
see
is your
that- I
life
could
like
see
this?
Eric's
'Cause-
point to some extent, because especially when you look at the ending of this movie, you get to the end of the movie and Bertoni comes out and somebody is voiceovering saying, "Don't let him leave, don't let him leave." We don't know who it is. Doesn't really matter. But the entire end of the climax of this movie is Berta, the cop lady, saying, "Are you okay? All right, have a good one." And she turns around and walks out.
Right, like the entire, like when I say plot, I mean like plot beats happening, right? And so like at the end of the movie, the entirety of the plot beats is horny encounter in bar, girl gets a therapy session, walks out. That's it.
Yeah, I mean,
Like, and
Eric,
I
well-
understand their story, right? But I'm just saying, like, that's to me what makes this so art housey, is that it's intentionally removing that stuff to give this an airy, like, dreamlike thing. It's also obviously working within its own budget limitations, of course, because like, of course, they shot in 2 locations or whatever, 3, I guess, if you count the cab scene.
He gets a lot of work out of
mileage, yeah, of
literally just
course.
shooting the hallway of
Yeah.
that quote unquote police station. There's, it's like a full minute of just a still or like very slowly, like dollying camera in that hallway. It's crazy. No, I mean, look, I don't even disagree with you. This thing does not have a 3-act structure. There is not a like.
Right.
It's like
arc.
a 2.5.
That's what I'm saying.
maybe.
I
it's-
would say
Yeah.
like 1.5.
It's aggressively, yeah, that's a really good way to put it. It's like aggressively structureless.
Sure, but
Yeah.
again, it's a student film, and that's where I come back to. I'm not saying that has to like you have to like it because it's a student film. I just think it's important to take that into the context to say like
Well-
again, don't if you're showing up to Shudder, and this is like a warning to people, like don't watch this if you want to see a movie that has a 3-act structure.
Of
If
course.
you like movies, don't watch this one.
Well,
Yeah, if you like
No,
moving
yeah,
if
images
you like
where weird
narrative.
shit happens.
No, that's right.
this
But
strikes.
if you want some proof of a director that's got, is somebody to watch for horror movies down the line, then this is your jam.
Yeah.
I mean,
And,
all I'm saying is this strikes me as the kind of thing that a good amount of listeners would wait to hear what we have to say on it before, or just like find out anything about it before they go into it. So like and I think we're doing it tonight. Like you got to just know what you're getting into.
Yeah, and I kind of want to go back to like what Cece was saying about like how this film is like experiential and how it kind of treats its representation of like possession. And because if we like think about what this demon ultimately wants, it kind of is very like amoral, right? Like usually we're used to like seeing like demons and possession as something that's like horrifying or something that is supposed to scare us.
Yeah.
Whereas like this, like what the demon does to the bodies that it was inhabiting, it essentially does like kill them. But at the same time, like the demon's motivations aren't necessarily that, which I thought was like an interesting like flip on the formula too.
Yeah, he's not trying to open the gates of hell.
Right. He's just like trying to get close to this person.
I think that's what's really interesting too, and like I would read more about the motivation of this movie or this like student film, because it's we, like you're saying, we see all these possession movies that have the like highest order of demons, and like Casey said, they're trying to open the gates of hell, but like there's all these other entities that have have personal motivations but don't necessarily have any greater ambition. And so it's interesting not only to have that kind of as a plot point, but as the whole
Yeah.
That
the
is
whole
the
movie
narrative
in
thrust.
general.
Yeah,
Demons get lonely too.
Well, and it's funny too, because like you're breaking it down, like essentially this girl was just like messing around at school, like playing a prank on a friend, or not a friend, but just playing a prank on somebody, being like very anti-religious in a religious school, and halfway summoned a demon, and now the demon's like, oh, I want to be friends, like why'd you leave me? And you're just like, this is a bizarro type of possession story. So
I do want to know why it took the demon 10 years or whatever it was.
well, because it's not a powerful demon, so it probably had to walk.
Apparently.
He has to ride all those people
Yeah.
to get there.
God. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
We got to talk about what they were drinking at that bar, because they had the celery
Yeah.
on like those
And,
like
well,
swizzle
and it
sticks.
changed color, like
It
that was
looked-
so.
Oh,
and
I
they
didn't
put
know.
sugar in it.
Okay, I didn't notice the color
I was
thing.
wondering if that was salt.
Yeah, it could have been.
Maybe it was the cleaning solution that the draft house just served a bunch of people by accident. Oh, you didn't see that, Andy? Oh, you gotta
No.
Google it. It was in Slack today. You missed it.
Jeez.
All right,
It
guys.
was like on the news. It was
Yeah,
on
it was
the
real.
news
It's real bad.
Man.
All right, guys. It's time. Would you recommend this, John?
Yes.
Casey?
Yes.
Andy?
Only if you think you could handle the conversation we just had.
Right. Happening in your head in real time. Cece?
Yes.
I'm gonna be the dissenter here. I don't know, man. I very much appreciate the artistry here, but I can't in good conscience recommend this and have someone hate me later. I don't. I need to be liked.
Great
John.
power comes great,
Your responsibility, exactly. Thank you.
disappointments.
Thank you. Cece gets it. All right, guys. It is time. Let's take a quick break and do some fan mail.
He's a man obsessed with having the perfect family.
I'll do anything I can do to keep my family together.
But his obsession hides a deadly secret.
Never talk about your past.
We don't have a single lead. The guy is smart. We won't have anything to go on unless he does it again.
All we need is a martyr around here.
Shelley Hack and Terry O'Quinn
You're a very bad girl.
in a thrilling tale of suspense. The Stepfather.
Tuesday at 8 on KST Washington.
Hi, this is Doc Broccoli Pinhead from the Hellraiser movies, welcoming you to Bloody Good Horror.
Send feedback to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or on Twitter using hashtag AskBGH. Join Patreon to get back episodes and much more. Patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror.
And we're back. info@bloodygoodhorror.com is the email address. First up, Cece. Where'd you go?
I'm here.
Where did you go?
Oh.
Where did you go?
I went to Egypt.
Can you confirm or deny the rumor Joe started that you went to Egypt just to get out of the show?
Totally true.
Can you
no,
confirm
we went...
that having the ocean between Kyle and Joe felt good?
I mean, no. You know, I've always been very upfront with I'm open to sharing Kyle. He's totally he can go spend his time with Joe whenever Joe wants him. We went for my stepmother's 40th birthday.
Wild. Was it fun?
Yeah, it was great. We flew into Cairo and then we're there for 2 days, and we flew to Luxor, and I got to nerd out with a bunch of art history. We went to Valley of the Kings. I got to do some Indiana Tomb Raider, Brendan Fraser mummy type stuff. So
you didn't try to touch any of the mummies, did you? Like they don't.
Yo.
I don't think they like that.
the
Egyptians, not the mummies.
Quick thing. So we went into the tombs in the Valley of the Kings, and you would think that, if those were here in America, everything would be plexiglassed off. They literally have thigh-high fences up of just wood planks. And you're walking through, you can touch all the hieroglyphs, you can touch all the paint, you can touch the sarcophagus, all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, don't touch anything because it's all probably cursed. And then you go to the museum back in Cairo, and I mean, it's
okay. I thought we were
amazing.
approaching this from an art preservation angle and not a cursed angle.
I'm getting there. Listen to this. You go to the Cairo Museum, which is phenomenal because there's all this crazy shit there, but it literally looks like a flea market. You have to step over these giant columns that are 4,000 years old, and people are rubbing these entrail tables that people used back then. And I mean, it was I was so upset with the lack of preservation.
That's
but
actually,
then I was also just what?
That's actually crazy.
It was crazy. And yes, I got to see mummies in the museum, and I'm glad that there was glass between us because I was like, oh, it'll be no big deal, but it was very unsettling.
Huh.
So,
wild.
yeah.
Well,
nice.
Welcome back
Mummified
to
cats?
I didn't see a mummified cat, but I did see a mummified baboon.
Whoa.
I never heard of
One
that
the
before.
princesses had a baboon as a pet, and it was mummified with her. They thought it was a baby at first, and then when they x-rayed it, they were like, nope, it's a baboon.
I thought you were going to say you got it.
Oh,
I thought you
okay.
were going to say you got upset because you couldn't figure out how to get the entrails table back to your house as a coffee table.
I know. You know what's funny?
Look, the table that I have is very it's pretty thin, and it folds up in case I have company over. These two tables were giant slabs of alabaster, so I'm not sure I would have room for them, but yeah, I would recommend going to Egypt, but I'm still trying to process everything we saw. It was crazy. So yeah.
Well, welcome back.
Thanks.
Welcome back to the land of the living, non-cursed peoples.
Yes.
I only have a couple of mummified animals in my apartment, so
yeah.
Well, Andy.
John, you can't talk about your kids that way.
Andy, you went to a place just as exotic.
Truly, I did.
Where was that?
Good story.
Yeah, there it is. Kansas City, Missouri, to check out the Panic Film Festival
I hear
Miss Sophie.
I hear they don't even put sauce on their barbecue there.
So we went to this place called Joe's, go figure, Joe's Barbecue in Kansas City, Kansas. It's like one of the more famous places, and like the barbecue, we got like burnt ends, and it just came like on a piece of Wonder Bread. And the only function that the bread has is so you can like eat the fat that's dripped off of your barbecue onto the bread. It's the best. But yeah, no, like all of the barbecue sauce was in squeeze bottles on the side. Fantastic stuff.
So you?
Oh, that's not that uncommon though.
No.
No, I know. So you met up with Sophie out there.
Yeah, we saw. Man, I think I got through about like 8 features and a shorts program. It was a super good time. It takes place at this Screenland Armour Theater, I think is what it's called, in North Kansas City. There's like 4 screens there, and it's literally just like movies start at like 10 or 1, and then you just crank them through like the entire day. And yeah, it was a blast.
Anything notable? Anything we're going to be watching on Bloody Good Hard?
I was gonna say, like, if I had to pick like a couple of ones to shout out, first of all, there's After Midnight, which is the Jeremy Gardner like follow-up movie.
So he did the Battery.
Correct. Yeah. Then other than that, though, the one of the ones that like was actually the most surprising was this one called The Disappearance at Clifton Hill. There is a plot device that deals with magicians having tigers, and it's played straight. And for some magical reason, it works. So that one's pretty good. Last 2, I want to shout out Extraordinary. That was the last film that we all saw together there. It's like an Irish comedy starring Will Forte as a disgruntled yacht rock musician who moves to Ireland and has to sacrifice a virgin. And it was hilarious. It was incredible. Great film watch. Lastly, I had it right here, and I lost my notes. This is Compelling Radio. Yeah. Oh, also there's a movie called Swallow. It's kind of like a domestic thriller about a pregnant woman who like begins to swallow all kinds of weird things. That was very stomach turning.
Wow, sounds like it. Good Lord.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for that creepy update, Andy. Don't forget to check out all the things Andy curates at bloodygoodhorror.com. We'll just leave that there for now. Emails, info@bloodygoodhorror.com. We got one from Sean. Sean says, I'm not sure if it's in your plans to see The Turning in the theater anytime soon, but I strongly suggest you don't. That is the biggest piece of crap movie I've seen in a theater in a long time. I left angry. It's not even a movie, really. It's more like a series of cheap jump scares all happening in the same location with the same characters, the best of which are revealed in the trailer. To make matters worse, the older brother is written as one of the most offensive and infuriating adolescent characters I've ever seen on screen. I like the little boy in the Babadook more. As I learned afterward by reading critical reviews of the movie, The Innocents 1961 is a much better adaptation of Henry James' novella The Turn of the Screw. Just curious, what's the most angry you've been in the theater? What's your most anger-inducing theater experience? So yeah, we were gonna do The Turning, but it was playing at really weird times for some of us, or some of us weren't getting it, so we ended up not doing it. And I figured, we kind of it seemed like a known quantity, which maybe on video. I think we reluctantly put it on the video schedule.
Which we should take off now.
Yeah, it sounds like we just might remove it.
It's just one man's opinion, okay? I've said this many times in the show, but the only movie I ever walked out on in the theater for the show is The Right with Anthony Hopkins.
Oh, yeah. No, that was
yeah.
Wait, what was the one that ended? I think it was Devil Inside that ended with a URL.
Yeah.
It did. Yeah. That was the one.
Holy shit. Legit, that's the angriest I've ever
It like leads up to the ending, and then it's just like, to see what happens, go to blah blah blah.com, and you're like, double bird, bro. Just walk out.
Yeah. I think if I hadn't seen it in a theater full of people that all started booing the screen, it quickly turned it into like an infuriating experience into a hilarious experience.
I think mine's got to be that social media movie we watched, Friend Request or whatever.
And it's so good.
It was all on the person's laptop.
And it's so good.
I appreciate the movie now, but it was a shock at the beginning. Sorry.
I appreciate that you learned to appreciate it, Casey. How's that?
Yeah. If I have to think of an anger-inducing movie, it's probably Birdman. That's probably the last one.
Haven't seen it.
I don't know.
Yeah, I've
Mother
seen
made
it.
me pretty annoyed while I was watching it.
The next
I
up.
just
Oh,
Darren Aronofsky can smell his own farts.
You know
for all
what?
I
Yeah,
care.
Mother was a weird one. I was also Mother was
I know.
Mother was a weird one. I was also angry while watching Mother, and then came out and was like, "That was brilliant," but I hated it, and I never want to watch it again. But it's incredible. Like I just still to this day. We got another email. It was just a beer recommendation thing for Joe. Wanted to let us know. I'll read the full next week for Joe, but that Captain Lawrence Brewery does a bunch of Lovecraft beers. They did 7 different Lovecraft beers, so check that out. info@bloodygoodhorror.com. That's the email. Before we do Twitter, just want to remind people, if you want to see a live stream of the show, check out patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror. That also gets you back episodes and some other goodies. And Slack.
Indeed.
Eric, I remember one other movie from Panic Fest I know you're going to like, and that is Synchronic.
What? I like the name. Well, how do you spell that?
Yeah, that's SYNCHRONIC. It's the latest movie from Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead. They are like really refining their style, and I think you're really going to like this one.
One would hope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Also, it's a word. That's a real word. It means concerned with something, especially a language, as it exists at one point in time. That sounds exactly the kind of thing those dudes would call their movie. In 2 New Orleans paramedics' lives are ripped apart after they encounter a series of horrific deaths linked to a designer drug with bizarre otherworldly effects. All right, let's do it. Let's do it. We lost Cece, but go ahead, John. Let's do Twitter.
I think Casey's got him.
Yeah, I got him. If you'd like to hear him.
Do it.
First up, we have a hashtag out there, Ask BGH. You got questions, we got answers, and we don't particularly care what the questions are about.
Isn't that isn't that Geico or something?
Yeah.
Allstate or something?
First one we have is from the horror mailman. That's at Texas Giant 3. He asked if Underwater would have been a Cloverfield prequel. Would it have been a financial success, and would it have made the movie better for you?
Wouldn't have made it better. I enjoyed it anyway, but I mean, that's kind of the thing about that last Cloverfield movie is once you bring the multiverse into it, you can just call anything Cloverfield. It'd be like, oh, this is just another Cloverfield verse.
Yeah,
pretty headcanon that movie to be a Cloverfield movie.
Yeah, somebody brought it up last week. I thought that was pretty good.
There really is. It's basically any of those sci-fi meets the further type of things. You can just be like, nah, Cloverfield.
Yeah.
So
I mean, like that movie last year, right? That they teased during the Super Bowl and then released like the next day.
Parallax. What's it? That movie's terrible. Do not even start to say nice things with that movie.
The idea that they introduced to explain the origin of like the Cloverfield happening, I friggin' love. I don't think the execution is very good, but I still think about how much I love what that does to like the overall mythos. Like it's that part is kind of brilliant. It just doesn't really come together.
Remember when Overlord was a Cloverfield movie too?
Oh yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, well, there's the internet.
I mean, Overlord is so good. I just watched it again, like right when I got back from Egypt.
There was a lot of Cloverfield talk before it came out.
Yeah. I think that's funny. That was the movie you went to, huh?
Yep.
Oh, God, gotta get these mummies out of my mind.
Just got off an airplane. Let's watch this.
Yeah, fired up.
Well, because I was like, I had to stay up because I had to try and not get, really bad jet lag.
Jet lag? Yeah, I'm with you.
This
salt
thing.
was a
That thing. Yeah, no, that's the universal symbol. So.
All right, next up we have from Jason's Beard. That's at Beard81 Dad. Who would you rather party with? The Ballet Coven from Suspiria remake, the dance troupe from Climax, or the cheerleader squad from Netflix's Cheer?
I haven't seen Cheer, but I'm gonna go with Climax. obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those people have fun.
They got acid.
I'd party with the older women ballet coven in Suspiria, not the younger
Yes.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would do that because when they're all like hanging around, just like smoking in their loft. Yes.
Andy, like, you want to hang out with that old lady who's like falling apart?
With all of the arms and legs hanging out of her tits.
Wait, did I miss that part of the movie?
Yeah, there's like little like arm flippers that like hanging off of
The
her.
actual
Yeah.
mother Tenebrarum or whatever is like, yeah,
Oh,
she's a real bad way when you see her at the end.
Yeah.
Christ.
All right, next up we have Jeremy Your Keeper. That's at Lovecraft Tapes. And he says, I loved Lose, but can see how some folks might find it challenging and maybe abandoned, even at 70 minutes. I can count on one hand the horror films I've bailed on, e.g. Necromantic. Which films were too much or too little for you and made you hit stop or eject?
I mean, we always bring it up, but Color of Your Body's Tears is easily the most pretentious / worst movie I think we've ever done on the show.
No way. I don't know. I mean, it might be most pretentious.
It's definitely
but
the most
worst is
pretentious.
really strong.
Few movies made me as angry as that one.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't even. I like barely even remember what happened. I'd have to look it up.
Or is it,
There
wait,
was a trauma flick about rednecks that Colleen and I watched long ass time ago, and we made it about 5 minutes and had to shut it off.
now,
It was pretty bad.
Was it Redneck Zombies?
No,
Because that was
I don't
one of
think
that,
so.
that was their classic shot on VHS one, but it is awful.
that could be the one.
It's old. It was like mid.
There was a scene with a pregnant lady that was just too much to handle.
I don't remember that part, but
Yikes.
Oh, I remember this strange color movie.
Strange Color of Your Body's Tears.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. It had a lot going on.
I will never forget how angry that movie made me.
Good times.
All right, and now we have Ben Warrington. That's at Ben_Waro on Twitter. Would you rather know when you will die or how you will die? Love you guys a lot. You are like my serenading armor of horror nerds.
Oh
I
my
love it.
God, I think when, because I don't know, you could use that information to motivate yourself, whereas the how, I mean, I guess, because if the how is natural causes, like that doesn't tell you when,
Yeah.
then you're just walking
Kinda
around all
leaves
the
you
time.
open-ended.
Yeah, if you don't know when, then you're walking around all the time thinking it could be right now, and that doesn't really help you at all. Whereas if you know when but not how, you know, like you can do something with that information and change your life.
But what if the cause is like bears? Do you just like stay out of the woods?
There is that. You could,
Or-
right, but you're,
And then
but,
someone brings a bear to your house, and you're like, no.
You can
you're-
never go to a zoo
Yeah.
ever again.
yeah, suddenly your birthday, your wife's like, here's tickets to the circus, and you're like, get out of here.
Yeah.
But like,
People are inviting you on vacations, and you're like researching to see if there's bears around.
Andy, by choosing the why, you're gambling that it's something you have control over.
This is true. And like, well, that's the paradox, right? That's the Cloverfield paradox.
It could just be adult onset diabetes, which, well, maybe that one you can do something about, but I don't know. I have a lot of questions about this scenario.
No, it's a good question.
Yeah.
I refuse to answer.
Too real.
Yeah.
All right. Now we have Whitney Lynn. That's at Whitney, please. What kind of horror scene gore do you feel the need to shut your eyes at? For me, it's anything to do with fingernails, a la The Ring, or teeth, a la American History X curb stomp scene.
Those are both real bad. I'll throw eyeballs in that mix.
Yeah.
Before we watched this movie, I never would have said, but someone jamming something into their nose and making it bleed, really bad, really
Yeah.
upsetting.
Yeah.
So
Cece,
I
you're
got a
muted.
weird hang up about like
Cease.
sliced skin. So like in what was it, the Clive Barker movie, The Nightbreed, and the main dude, and when he would Hulk out into his monster mode, and he had those little slits all over his skin, that just grossed me out. That's hard to watch.
it's pretty specific.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like trichophobia or something or whatever that's
I
called with the
watched-
little spots.
You know what I watched over this weekend? I don't know if you guys have ever seen this. There's this movie on Shudder. I think it's a Shudder exclusive called Haunt. Casey, maybe you've
Yes.
seen it. It's not bad. It's just kind of like a silly little slashery like haunted house movie. But there's a
Yeah.
scene where this girl reaches her hand in a like blind box and pulls it out, and we find out later it had razor blades in it. But
Ugh.
it's actually kind of sweet because like it's brilliantly done because she pulls her hand out and nothing's happening, and then you just see blood slowly seep out of the little like slit. You know, it's like that was pretty disgusting. What do you think of that movie, Andy?
I liked that movie until they like started taking their masks off, and then it was just like, why?
Yeah, it's
But
just cheesy.
other than that, it was all right. I mean,
It's-
it was entertaining and gory.
It's like cheesy in a way I appreciate it. It's like what I kind of wanted. We did a similar movie, Funhouse movie on the show, where they're all stuck in an amusement park. I couldn't tell you the name of it. We did it like 6 months ago. Maybe.
It's called
Hellfest.
Hellfest.
Yeah.
This Haunt is kind of like what I wanted Hellfest to be. So if you're into that kind of thing, it's just fun. It's just goofy fun.
Haunt's also kind of what Rob Zombie wanted 31 to be.
It's like honestly the first time in maybe a year that I watched a horror movie not for the show.
All right, next we have Late Night Living Room. That is at LNR Productions. What gruesome injury from a movie randomly pops in your head and makes you wince every once in a while? That's not too dissimilar from Whitney's question.
I was literally just talking about Midsommar today and how they, how one person had it right by jumping head first and the other jumped feet first.
Yeah.
So I would say that one.
This is a cliche, at least if you're as old as I am, but I'm gonna say Misery.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. I would go with Zombie 3, like the first Italian ripoff remake. And there's a scene where one of the zombies and they're fighting and they pull the lady down, like they have a extreme close up on the piece of glass going into the lady's eyeball.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's just
that's pretty rough one.
Zombie. That's just Zombie, I think. Is this one?
Oh, is it Zombie?
It's like a door splinter that he like slowly pulls her head into. That's a Fulci joint.
Yep. All right. We have Fritz at Viva La Tony. How do you lot feel about Chilling Adventures of Sabrina featuring a deep one from Lovecraft's Shadow over Innsmouth, possibly setting up a possible confrontation with a great old one?
I mean, I've been watching Sabrina and I actually was on a podcast with two local Atlanta witches about the authenticity of Sabrina and the witchcraft in the show. But I haven't watched any of the new season yet, but I think that they've been handling most of their plot points pretty well. So I think that'd be pretty interesting.
We actually binged that over the last weekend once it hit, and they did a good setup. I don't know that the end product was quite landed where they wanted it to, but they had good setup for it.
Okay.
All right. Last one, Tweet Shark. That's at Codyyolo. Your favorite Scooby-Doo, where are you villain?
I'm not a big Scooby-Doo guy. I used to turn it when it came out when I was a kid. Kind of lame.
I don't remember the specific villains.
Yeah.
I think I was just talking about maybe a couple weeks ago. I read one of the novelizations, like a recent novelization with my kids
of Scooby-Doo.
Yeah. And
I may be the world's only Scrappy-Doo fan.
Oh, but no, I love Scrappy-Doo.
Nah, Scrappy's all right.
Who doesn't like Scrappy-Doo?
He's sassy.
He's just a little guy.
I don't know the name of the villain, but my favorite was always the dude in the old-fashioned diving suit that glowed in the dark. I always thought he was pretty creepy.
We're hanging out in Kansas City. One of Sophie's friends, he really wanted to watch a Supernatural episode in which they get sucked into a Scooby-Doo cartoon, which I have never seen Supernatural whatsoever.
No, me neither.
So I was like, sure, why not? Let's check this out. And that was pretty fun. So whatever that villain was, I'll take that one.
Andy, you just got all the Supernatural stands out there. Really excited.
Yes, he did. And that's it for tweets. Remember, if you got a question, ask a BGH hashtag, and we'll get that answered for you.
Yep. Get her done. John, did we talk about next week?
Next week, I believe the film is Gretel and Hansel.
Ah, yes. Are you?
Yes.
Have you?
So hot right now.
Have you learned sufficiently enough about this, John, to be at least a little excited
No,
about it?
I'm not. All I know is it's directed by Oz Perkins, which is enough for me. That's all I need to know.
Yeah.
I have not watched the trailer. I've not watched anything, so I'm going in completely, blind here.
Great.
That's all I know too. And to echo Joe's thoughts on Slack, though, I mean, I hope there's at least a mention of the sugar sickness.
Great trailer. Lots of warped glass sounds, which I always appreciate. Lots of ding, and then it reverberates. It's my favorite thing. Yeah. So next week, Gretel and Hansel. Get excited, people. Back in the theater. It's January. Might as well go sit in the theater, right?
Yeah. What else you gonna watch on Sunday night?
Don't forget to check out bloodygoodhorror.com and check us out at Patreon, patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll talk to you next week.
See you.
Bye.
Farewell.
Bye-bye.